see our differences as our unique gifts rather than something that divides us. We can't lose any time to bother about those minor differences anymore. We need to really see beyond and to truly build this connection, heart to heart.
I'm so glad that I had a chance to talk to Yan Liu this week. Yan is a social entrepreneur, community builder, and ecosystem builder. In the last 20 years, Yan has co-founded many innovation ecosystems and platforms in China, the Netherlands, Australia, and Southeast Asia. In this podcast, Yan shared with us her experiences of building one of the most innovative companies, Xindanwei, in China in 2008. About the rich learning and insights she got from leading China-Australia Millennium Project by bringing 200 Australian and Chinese top young leaders together to tackle 20 global challenges. She also shared her stories about bringing children from different social environments from Thailand and Vietnam together to learn and to explore, and how gratitude deeply impacted their learning process. I was touched and inspired by her stories. I hope you will feel the same. Enjoy the conversation. Hey, good morning.
Hi, Hi.
Hi, so great to see you. Thank you very much to make time to join my podcast.
It's an honor to be here.
Thank you. And could you please give a short introduction about yourself and all kinds of work you are doing at the moment you have done?
Yeah, perhaps I start from what I'm doing now.
Yes.
Currently, I'm coordinating the core team of System Innovation Amsterdam Hub. So we're a learning community of system innovation, theory, practice, and application, and also a community of practitioners for system innovation. So my background is very much around innovation and system thinking and entrepreneurship. So I would describe myself more as a ecosystem builder and community builder. I came back to Netherlands last year from Singapore after living in Asia for 14 years. I drew my inspiration for community building, ecosystem building through my work back in 2004. When I actually I was in Netherlands from 2000 to 2007, and I got my art management degree from Utrecht School of Arts, and after that I had my privilege to work with really great organization such as the Dutch V2, the Dutch Institute of Stable Media. And there I actually experienced how an ecosystem of innovation and art practice look like. So from that inspiration, and slowly, my work really just centered around bringing different people, different culture, different discipline, different like different countries together to explore how might we do things differently. To make the world a better place.
Yeah, it's I have followed your work last few months, and I also participated a few activities, events you organized. And I must say, Yan, I have great experience by be there and to practice deep listening. You ask us to be conscious about what we are feeling instead of just think and talk, but just listening and co-create and collaborate. And I'm just wondering, you are a very driven social entrepreneur. In the last 20 years, you had really such rich experiences doing this, and in Asia, and in Netherlands, in all kinds of countries. I'm wondering what drives you to become a social entrepreneur, and because you are born and educated in China, and this is not really, from my own experience, it's not really a Chinese upbringing. We don't stress social entrepreneurship, and we are much more success achievement driven society, I think, before, and in our education system. So what about your upbringing? Do your parents influenced you to become such a passionate and driven social entrepreneur to really make social changes possible?
That's a great question. Wow. Yeah. I think, Yami, we have touched upon how our childhood has impacted our everyday thinking much more beyond what we actually I'm aware of. I did do a lot of deep reflection on my upbringing and my family condition, even the history of my family, how that actually impacted the journey I have walked and continue to walk. My parents are very ordinary working class people, and the biggest inspiration, I think, that they have, the biggest influence they have really provided to me is that my father is an amateur artist. Why I call it amateur is because that he has this talent to be a very good artist, but just he didn't have the condition to do that. So he is very driven to learn by himself. He has never been trained as an artist, and he draw a lot of different things. But his favorite is always around landscape. But of course, when he was young, he can only draw propaganda posters. And unfortunately, I don't really have any collection of that, and I know that a lot of people collecting that. And my mother is a very natural community organizer, and it's like wherever she goes, she will build connection with all the neighborhoods, and she will actually find people who are interested or passionate about certain things that she's passionate about, and she can easily just organize a neighborhood meeting to address certain issue. So I thought my mom was great, and she has such a huge potential to be a great leader. But again, it was a time that they live in. Both of them didn't really have the opportunity to excel. So I think I do have both of their quality, and that's why I actually, when I had the opportunity to choose what I want to be, when I moved to Netherlands, is I went into art school to not study art, but study how to manage art. So so my upbringing is just like many of the people born in the 70s, very traditional, competitive, and my happiest memory really is before the childhood. And I could just pretty much do whatever I like. I was quite a nerd. I read a lot. I collect stamps. I collect pretty much everything really, but stamps are my biggest collection. And I drew illustration work, but my dad was like, "That's a waste of time," I pretty much killed my creativity out there. So I love theater. I danced, and I was a pretty good singer. So I think I had so much interest, and I already lost count on how much interest I had. So, but of course, if you go to school, and there is very little you can develop further, because your time is occupied with exams and preparation of exams. Just like still the kids nowadays are still doing the same. Can't believe it.
Yeah,
Mm.
I think, Ian, I think what you just told about your parents, they really, yeah, they really formed you, and in many ways, and
Mhm.
also all kinds of things you did in your childhoods, and I can see that also. If I look at your experiences on LinkedIn, you had 33 experiences. It's such a rich list of experiences. You had followed also leadership course, I think the Amsterdam School of Creative Leadership, and it intrigued me about this the description about this course, because oh, it sounds so fascinating, and because I read that you all kinds of leaders and from all kinds of areas, from a multidisciplinary team, from creative entrepreneurs, and from CEOs, from all kinds of companies, and philosophers and artists all come together to solve real life challenges. So could you please tell us a little bit more about this course, and what did you learn, and the insights you got from this this process?
I'm happy that you mentioned think. I think change my life was changed by think. Really, actually, a bit before I was invited to join as the founding class of Think. I went back to China in 2016. Sorry, messed up. 2007. Actually, to pursue something that I had been always, I thought I had been always being prepared for. Like what I told you, I was a child who was full of ideas and creativities, and the whole treadmill of schooling didn't really prepare and actually provide me with a lot of space for development, except for 1 year in high school. I was given a title of the chief editor of the literature society. So I organized all the club of kids to read together, write together, and I organized a newspaper. I was also a chief editor of the newspaper. We also had a radio. I was also the main host of the radio. So I really spent a lot of time on that, and I didn't have time to do my normal schoolwork. So and the second year of the high school, and where all the kids are actually dedicated to prepare for the final Gaokao exam, I was still kind of writing newspaper articles. So my mom was really, really angry, and she went to school and basically protested in front of my teacher's classroom. That meant the main teacher who supported this work. And so we had no choice but dismiss the whole thing. So that was like, that was like how, yeah, it was end up. But I feel like some of my passion has been lightened up and through that. So I think that's the early stage of me, a young me, really like teenager me, trying to make a difference and try to change this whole suppressing and like machine like kind of learning system. I wanted to organize a different kind of learning system. So that's why when I moved back to China, I started to experiment a different way of learning. So I brought all these people together, like what you mentioned, I think, and I brought all these people together, starting with artists, and then technologists and designers and all these so-called creative people. I brought them all together and to explore something different that they couldn't see if they just stick to their own discipline. So yeah, that actually opened up an entire world for me, and so I started to really think, how do I support this community? I don't have a lot of money. Maybe we should start a business, and there is no funding available. In China, it's very difficult. even starting with this kind of grassroots movement. So how do I do that? So we have some government connections. So Shanghai was really interested in all kinds of creative organizations. So they wanted to discover what we do. But more importantly, we need to find a business model to support it. Yeah. So at the first year, we lost a lot of money. And me and my two friends, we started all together, and three of us invested like every month just to support ourselves and, not only daily living, but also the expenses for having a space. We call it co-working space. Co-working didn't exist in China. We didn't have a word for it. So I had to invent a word. And so that's how everything got started. And so when Think approached me, because they saw me as the kind of super connector to all the creative people, and they want to reach out to in China. They asked me to help them out. I was like, sure. I don't really know who they are, but fine. We just have this connection. I just continue working. At that time, we actually expanded to 3 locations in the center of Shanghai. There was a lot of expenses and a lot of things to worry about, and I also felt very frustrated because if you have a space, you need to make sure everything functions, right? So there's a lot of operational work. And it feels like killing my creativity and killing my energy, just managing the everyday stuff, make sure the toilet is functioning, the printer is not broken, the wallpaper is not peeling off, that kind of thing. My friend is, my co-founder is managing that, but me as a CEO, I need to also be on top of those things. So initially, I told Think, initially asked me to recruit people for them, but then a week later, they asked me whether I want to join. And my first reaction is, I'm way too busy. I don't have time for some leadership exercise. I'm already a leader. I don't need to learn leadership. And they insisted, and they kind of successfully convinced me. So I was really happy that I made that decision to come back to Amsterdam, and to immerse myself into this environment, to really pause and reflect on the why. Why do I do what I do? And before I jump into another how and what. Right? So, and I was really happy but also intrigued, amused also to see there are so many of our Asian philosophy and practice, like qigong, even walking backwards in the park. And I was like, what are we doing here? And isn't this, if you Shanghai, if you go to Renmin Gongyuan, People's Park or any park, you see the old people all walking backwards, right? So and so it is actually a practice to build senses, body awareness, because we're too much relying on our eyes. And so if you walk backwards, it's a very different kind of development of your body intelligence. So that kind of, we all have that kind of intelligence, but it's all kind of suppressed or not been activated. So so Think has given me an opportunity to discover so many different qualities that within me, and but also become much more aware what I want to develop in myself, and build a kind of deep connection with where I come from. So all these kind of big why question has given me provide me a very different trajectory after Think. So I think the biggest decision I've made is that I wanted to move on from running a co-working space. And it was funny because on the same year we were actually listed as one of the 10 most innovative company in China by Fast Magazine. And they sent us this award and whatever. And then I was like, okay, that's it. We don't want to continue like this anymore. So it was a bit of a sad decision, because we serve a community of 15,000 members, and we run events every couple of days, and it is definitely one of the hottest creative centers in Shanghai and probably in China as well. And our practice has inspired so many other young people to start their own collaborative working community, collaborative community to work together. And then when I made this decision, my co-founders were really sad. So I wanted to move on with my life because I wanted to work with people, I have met and I think, to truly focus on the things that really I feel like I can impact the most, which is again, coming back to the core. Why do I do what I do? Is that because of my childhood, my school experience in China, I know there are a lot of young people who have a lot of great ideas and a dream and a fire inside them that they wanted to make happen. So I want to go back to that kind of core. So I saw myself more as a different kind of learning environment builder, learning community builder, facilitator of different kind of conversation. So those kind of conversation we'll have to kind of unlearn and relearn, because we come from an environment, those kind of conversations never really happen. No. Not in the family, not in the school environment, not in society, in the workplace, and everywhere there are hierarchy, and there is no really deep listening, and there is only giving order, following order, and providing norm, fitting the norm. And it's not that I'm criticizing this type of collective sort of society. Actually, it's a beauty. It's a beautiful thing to have a collective, a community. That's why I named the co-working space Xindanwei. And Danwei is where my parents work, and a lot of parents in their generation, they work in work unit, right? So nobody really called it as a company. It's not a capitalist thing. It's a socialist community, right? So I grew up pretty much in a kind of very nurturing environment that I've been taken care of by all the neighbors and my mom's and my dad's colleagues, and they all know everybody's kids by name, and we just grab our bowl and run to the neighbor's dining room and watch their TV. This is all very common. I think people grow up in Shanghai, they also have a beautiful memory of their Nongtang experience, and like Beijing, you have Hutong experience. And I'm sure in every single, doesn't matter how big the size of the city, we all have our own like village experience. Even when I was in Singapore, and people told me about their kampong experience. Kampong is like the old village, sort of, before Singapore was such a high, metropolitan, and it used to be also jungles, and people living in the village in the jungle. So people live in a very different kind of lifestyle. I have really nostalgia to that kind of lifestyle, and so I love being surrounded by people who genuinely care about each other. And that's back to this Xindanwei, and I think that it is kind of my ideal world where people respect and trust each other, appreciate each other's unique quality, and work together. And it's like, if you if you're in love with somebody, and this person not only trusts you and care about you, but also appreciate your quality and respect your choice in life, then you and your loved one can be so much better together by being yourself, right? Sure. So that's I think that's kind of community that I want to create. So that's my answer to the big why question.
You have created this innovative concept. You also set up a lot of projects for youth. I think youth is one of the main themes in your life, and you care a lot about them. And you had you set up China Australia Millennium Project many years ago, and it's a 100-day incubator program to gather 200 Australian and Chinese top young leaders and tackle 20 global challenges. Could you please tell us a little bit more about this project and what are the learnings and insights you got from this project?
Yeah, this is another great memory I had. Actually, I wasn't really involved when the team, they're all Australian, all ladies. When they actually tried to set up such a project, I was a mentor of this team. So I think the team has a really big vision, which I really appreciate. That's why I also supported them. Is that they wanted to have a dialogue between two countries. Instead of like top politicians, business people, of course they are very important, they send delegation. They want to provide a platform for youth truly get curious about each other. And so I work with youth because my co-working space, most of the people who come to participate and organize and engage in the activity in my space are youth. So then they came to me, first of all, they want to understand what are the topics that the Chinese youth care about. And they wanted to they wanted to exchange ideas with Australian youth. And secondly, they want to find those top youth leaders. And the process, I found it really interesting. Not to stereotype Chinese youth, but we are really much more observer and deep listener than our Australian counterparts, and so Australian youth are much more vocal, expressive, and they wanted to get their idea heard, and they take initiative. They're very proactive. But the Chinese youth in general, and not everybody, but in general, are much more taking a step back, and they wanted to have a holistic view what's going on, and they want to listen, they want to feel the energy in the room, and they want to really lessen the nuances of every single conversation before they say something. So in the Australians' eyes, and Chinese people are very passive. And so this is where most of the culture clash happen, and so it is a China Australia Millennium Project. It seems like they're working on some global challenges, but really it is a cross-cultural leadership program. And so we actually designed a program that is like 100 days and to make themselves aware, especially a lot of youth, they have never worked with Australian before, or any Westerners. So they clearly see the differences between them and the Australian counterparts. So first, notice your feeling. Notice what triggers you. So build that kind of awareness. Where do you feel in your body, or where do you feel, what do you feel after, when you finish the meeting with, a couple of other teammates, and have that kind of awareness, then try to make sense of that awareness. That's where the knowledge started to happen, right? So wherever you feel like you want to grasp to certain kind of identity, and you just feel very uncomfortable about it, that's where actually learning happens. So of course, sometimes the learning is a little bit too much, and there's a lot of tears and fights, and and people come to me for help, and but that's a beautiful process. And when we actually celebrated this learning by gathering all the young people in Sydney and climbing the Harbour Bridge and making Mexican wave, and we were so proud that we have made it, and we're here and to celebrate this unity, other than differences.
You're also very passionate and about poverty alleviation. and you did a lot of projects in Singapore, also in other countries to help young people, startups, and to really solve all kinds of problems in the areas which is sanitary, all kinds of facilities were very bad. And what you also shared, I still remember, and during our system awareness circle in Amsterdam, you also shared such a beautiful story about your experience of bringing the children from different countries in Asia together to have this very, very special experience together. So could you please tell us a little bit more about your work in this field and your experiences and stories?
Thank you. The poverty alleviation was very new to me, actually. I mean, we don't really grow up being a middle class in China, but I've never really remember myself experiencing poverty per se. I had enough food to eat, and I always have a shelter, I have a loving family, and I don't really remember experiencing being poor. So when the whole economic boom starts in China, there are a lot of people who couldn't keep up with this, and you will see people who end up on the street. But it's always a very uncomfortable scene. We try not to see them. And my parents always told me, if you end up on the street, then you're a loser, or you're lazy. That's the kind of thing that always kind of linger in my head. And don't trust the beggars. That's the kind of, and homeless people. Don't trust them. So when I actually moved to Singapore, I was looking for a place where I could really contribute and make a difference. Moving from China to Singapore, for me, is kind of changing the perspective of the world, because if you stay in one country too long, your worldview started to form, and you lose the whole insights, right? So in 2016, we moved to Singapore. I wanted to discover what is happening in that part of the world. So Southeast Asia, very, very diverse region, and I, in a simple term, you can say Singapore is a rich kid living in a poor block, surrounded by all the poor countries. So, and of course, we traveled a lot, and to some of the countries are experiencing perhaps some extreme poverties, including Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar. And even Singapore as a country alone, itself also has some, I couldn't remember the statistic, but quite significant amount of people who are working poor. They can work on several jobs and still couldn't really meet their, cover their daily expenses. So, but it's through witnessing the extreme poverty in the region that actually make me feel there's something inside my heart. I feel like, how could any human live in such a condition? And I just met the person who has been working 20 years in the field of sanitation improvements, especially for countries in Africa, in India, in Middle East. And he actually shed a lot of lights on me, and introducing this whole system thinking, system mindsets to me. And because he realized, after trying like a decade or two, to solve sanitation problem alone is not going to solve the problem. And you have so many problems are interconnected to the sanitation alone. If you don't have education, good education, people would not appreciate that kind of sanitation condition you create for them. If you don't have medicine, a lot of children will die because of poor sanitation issues. And so So there's a lot of interrelated challenges that need to be tackled together with the sanitation, not sanitation alone. So that is from the problem level, but also if you look deeper, then you also see that there are many actually solutions have been already created, which doesn't really have opportunity to be scaled to different countries. So how can we actually connect all the practitioners who are all working to elevate poverty in different parts of the world to truly give each other such a support and experimenting, existing solutions worldwide. So that was how everything got started. And so this actually really opened my mind. When I actually built a school of Gongchen in Singapore, we were actually thinking about using the similar kind of formula as China Australian Millennium Project. One same challenge. If you look from a different country or cultural perspective, the challenge actually looks different. So the problem also looks different. So also different culture might bring different kind of solution to the space where you can truly collaborate and build something together. So that was kind of where the inspiration come from, and of course we have to really get funding to support kids who can't participate in such a cross-cultural program. Like when we reach out to Vietnam to recruit kids who are like really speak good English and who wanted to participate, and we have to go through Teach for Vietnam, and they are connected to the schools, and they also don't really have any funding source in Vietnam. But then it was also good to see that the advantage of being in Singapore, there's a lot of funding in Singapore.
Yeah.
So when I actually recruited 20-something kids, 15, 20 kids from a school in Thailand, the school is actually a Buddhism school, because I'm a Buddhist, and I'm connected to the Buddhist teachers in Thailand, and so they are actually connected to this kind of school. And so many of the kids come from a middle class or a pretty privileged family, so they could actually afford entire the full cost. So with that kind of money, we can use to support the kids from Vietnam. And then also with this generous support, one of the founder in Singapore, so we fly also 15 to 20, don't remember the number, to Singapore and cover all their expenses and provide such a cross-cultural learning between Thai kids and Vietnam kids.
Yeah. Also, you shared during the System Awareness Circle that the impact of those kids from Vietnam and on the kids from Thailand is so eye-opening.
The story was kind of it was surprising for all of us. It's not surprising, but also surprising at the same time, because you can imagine the kids coming from privileged backgrounds, and they have many of these opportunities to attend a summer camp here and there. So for the Thai kids, it's just another summer camp, right? So Singapore, they have probably been there several times, and they it's not a big deal. So they come together. They wanted to. Many of them actually have their phone, and they just kind of want to be left alone and do a bit of sightseeing, and they enjoy themselves, and and they don't really show a lot of interest to learn anything new. So that's my impression. So when we actually opened the whole summer camp on the first day, the Vietnam kids they actually arrived late. So the Thai kids arrived in the classroom. They're just sitting there chit chat, or most of them are on the phone. And the Vietnam kids came in, and I think they don't really walk in, they run in. And there are two kids who are extremely vocal, two girls. I remember one chubby girl, and she's like, "Oh my God, I'm in Singapore, I'm in summer camp, I love all of you." We were kind of shocked to see her energy. And especially the Thai kids, they were like, "Ooh, wow," you know, "Oh, who is these people?" So, and they know the kids from Vietnam are joining as well, but they don't really anticipate this type of energy. So, and because of that energy, an entire room was kind of started to full of the kind of positive energy. So these two girls, and they start to run around and shake hands with every single kids, and they bow to us and to thank the teacher. "Thank you, teacher, for giving me this opportunity." And such a gratitude and excitement and joy of learning. And most of the Vietnam kids are pretty shy, because a majority of them, I would say probably 99% of them, have never really left their province before. A majority of them got passport. I think 99% of them probably, yeah. Only one kid had left Vietnam before. The rest never had left their provinces. So they travel for the first time to Singapore, and they actually feel very shy. But because of these two girls, and they also start to light up, and they we did some game together, and then you don't see the Thai kids looking at their phone anymore, and they were like completely like being lightened up. And their energy was also kind of from just like relax and chill to like really lean in. They want to do something together. They want to explore, what's in the program. So I would say these Vietnam kids are a rescuer of my program. Without them, I cannot imagine what really like how we end up this program. It's so much energy, so much inspiration. Every day we ask kids to take a journaling, not don't have to write on anything. They can draw pictures, and then send us take a picture of their picture and send it to the group. So every day you'll see the kids who have never been in Singapore, how they actually draw what they see. It was so funny. And then because of one funny picture, there are more funny pictures being produced by different kids. It was just so much fun. Even after finishing whole day camping, I go home, I look at kids' pictures. I was so really happy.
Yeah. Oh, what's a fulfilling experience, I can imagine. And you're also telling us this experience with such kind of energy. As you said, these kids are really the rescuer of your program. And the gratitude, I think the gratitude can be, is such a magic power to connect people.
Yeah. That's another thing. I become after several years of working in this field, and I just feel a little bit triggered by people who are providing solution to the poor and vulnerable and helpless and powerless people. I have no doubts many of these projects or even like companies or foundations are doing this out of a great intention, human compassion. But it also breaks my heart to see how we label people as all the poor people from this country, that country. So when you label them into a certain category, you have a certain image. You have very starving kids who are dying. Every time I look at this picture, I was like, yeah, this is only part of the reality. Why am I seeing this? Because they are human, and they have dignity, they have drive, and they wanted to do better. And let's look beyond the suffering of human in such a condition. Let's just look at the condition that make them suffer.
Yeah.
And the condition actually is very complex, and we are all contributing to that condition.
Yeah.
And to make the poor people always poor and rich get richer. This is the system that we are all contributing in. You know, like people might say, okay, what can I do? You know, there's, you know, such a big thing in the world. There's, you know, either I become completely numb. I don't really like myself. You know, when I was kids and I would look at the beggar, I walk away. I pretend I didn't see anything. Or I just gave them stuff, right? So this is the least I can do. But when you're actually giving free stuff, you are creating a different problem. And so you make the people who are in need feels like that they can just rely on this kind of giving. And they are forever the receiver, because they also want to give back. They're actually, you know, if you get to know them, they are very, very generous, and they're very passionate, they're very compassionate, they're very kind. And so that's my experience working with many of these people, but also my own life experience. Like my child, my 16 years old, I'm 17 now this year. She has some online friends who come from this quite disadvantaged backgrounds, and so the mom is like divorced, and you know used to use a drug and alcohol, and then also experiencing schizophrenia, mental condition. So all kinds of problems in the family, and then you have also family violence victims. So actually, in one occasion, my child wanted to visit her friend in England. I didn't know that there's such a huge poverty in England as well. In some formal industrial town in northern England, and this girl, and before we visit her, her family was robbed by the neighbor, and so the mom also live alone. So I really don't know if it's a good idea to let my child travel there by herself. And so I decided to go with her. And there, you know, even I have worked in this field of working on poverty alleviation, I have experiencing my own transformation from not trusting, fear, a bit of anxiety, and to total surrender to the experience and total appreciation and deep connection. You know, the people who receive us are not only the girl herself, but her entire family, her mom, grandmother, her aunts, and grand stepdad, which we didn't really see. They all provide such a beautiful welcome to us. And so my child walked away with an entire backpack of gifts. And I had no words for that. You know, it's something I just felt like, you know, and I learned so much more. I learned about what love is through this kind of experience. So there is a lot that so-called poor people can give us and show us, and especially if you look at now in many of the Western countries, and youth are experiencing pretty traumatic mental health problems. I'm just wondering, where does this come from? How might we address this by bringing youth with different aspiration together to provide them with a different perspective? And my child definitely learned a lot about resilience appreciation, for gratitude, and speak out of their voice and in the society, because when you don't have a lot of opportunity, then you are doing your best, right, to get that. So she learned all that from her friends, coming from those very so-called disadvantaged family backgrounds. Yeah, but those kids, I'm just very grateful that she has had such a connection.
Yes, thank you for sharing this. I can imagine that both you and your child both have learned really a lot from this experience, and the importance of appreciation and gratitude and the real authentic human connection. And I just want to ask you, Yan, if you can give some tips for people and from all your experiences to make really this human connection with Chinese people from our listeners from West countries. What kind of tips can you give to make this connection?
I'm asking myself the same question. When as you know that I've lived in several different countries, how can I really look beyond my cultural upbringing and build deep connection with the soil, the being, and the people around me. First of all, I felt my own experiences that I don't really look people as a different nationality and how they actually defined by their nationality and culture. Yes, we all carry our cultural baggages or assets, and that makes us all unique and different. But at the same time, we are so much more than just a culture or race or a country. Even like, as I shared with you, I'm trying to discover my own history, and within the world history, within the history of China, within the history of certain, like my sixth generation before, how is that forming me? So yes, it's a much wider sense of self that goes beyond just right here, right now, or what I've done in the past 20 years. So, or how I grew up. It's so much more beyond that. So the kind of connection we make with people from different countries is look beyond this cultural layer. And there's a lot of things interesting about our cultural aspects. Like, oh, what do you do as a Dutch person? What do you do as a Chinese people? We'll do different things with the different same situation. It's interesting, but it's all on the surface level. If you are truly curious and you look beyond the surface, you look beyond the why, look beyond the heritage, the history, and there's a lot of things that you can find in common. Like, we all have the same love for life. We all love our family. We all love beautiful things, and we all share something in common, and like something concerned us. The turbulence happening around the world, and our divide with the nature, our divide with our own human conscious, our heart. This is all universal, and also the action we can take as a human. We're lucky to be human, and so an action we can take together, to address all this issue. like, you know, this is something we communicate to our youth in China, Australia. You know, they're all working on 20 global challenges faced by 2 countries. This is a global challenge faced by every single country. So with such a challenge, and that really, you know, almost you look like some kind of crisis, but at the same time, it's also kind of, Joanna Macy called it a great unraveling. It is a different time that things started to really transform and change, and such an exciting time that we can all work together and take this opportunity to turn the page and to make a difference. Yeah, see our differences as our unique gifts, rather than something that divides us. And we have very little time. We can't lose any time to bother about those minor differences anymore. We need to really see beyond and to truly build this connection, heart to heart. Yes, so that's what I all have to say.
Really, thank you so much for these beautiful words and wisdom. Thank you for sharing all of these stories with all of us. How can people connect with you?
Just go on LinkedIn, search System Innovation Amsterdam Hub, or just go on under my profile. I share that activity on a regular basis. The next event is about envisioning a better future storytelling. So, which is a part 2 of the envision of a better future. So we want to see a future that we want to create together, and then and you know, see from that future back what we can do to make a difference, and every day on the tiniest level. So this is something I hope to launch as a series, which I share with you, as a 10 years storytelling. You know, 10 years this coming 10 years, not the past 10 years. So we are creating a new narrative every day, and we document this narrative. We share that narrative with each other. We inspire each other with this everyday change we're making. Actually, do another little advertisement. I'm also engaged in gender diversity issue with among youth. So I work as a volunteer at the Transvisi, which is a patient organization, model organization for transgender people, but not only transgender, but all the gender fluid people. And so we provide an English-speaking online meeting for kids between, I think, 13 to 17 years old, to come online, meet other youth who also exploring different aspect of their gender together. And once a month, we run this meeting.
If you watch on YouTube or podcast show notes, I will just mention all of this, all of the links for all of this interesting activities. And thank you, Yan. Thank you for this really great conversation. I enjoyed it very much.
Same here.
Thank you very much for listening. You can also watch the interview on Our Cultures and Our World podcast YouTube channel. If this podcast is valuable to you and your business, please subscribe and help me by sharing this podcast with more people. It's my mission to help people from different cultures to connect with each other, learn from each other, and inspire each other. You can also go to check out my website for more information about what I do and the kindness projects I support. I genuinely hope that this podcast and the stories my guests share will give all of us insights, ideas, and inspiration to create a more connected world together.